Actor Miguel Sapochnik. Liam Cunningham. John Bradley. Natalie Emanuel. Conleth Hill. Sophie Turner. Iwan Rion. Faye Marseille. Isaac Hempstead Wright. And finally, Christian Nairn. I'd like to start with the elephant in the room. It's been announced that next season will only be 7 episodes and will not air until the summer. So I guess my first question to David and Dan is, why do you hate us all so much? This seems personal.
Well, you know, I guess as Sophie said in that clip, winter is here, and we got to shoot in places where there are trees, and we got to wait for the leaves to fall off. So we're actually waiting to shoot later in the year, and that means we don't finish shooting till February. But there's no way to finish post. There's no way to get the show out there until summer. So.
That doesn't account for the 3 Sundays where I will have nothing to do at night. Can you walk me through that in front of 7,000 people and millions of people who are watching?
You can rewatch and start over at the beginning.
That's a good answer. So there's a plethora of human history to draw from, but is there any civilization or time period specifically that you guys draw the most amount of inspiration in terms of like quest for power, or even any kind of like Machiavellian real life characters throughout history that you can think of specifically?
Well, I think the books are sort of built on a skeleton of medieval Western history, but one of the great things about fantasy is that you're not bound to what happened. So George, when he wrote his books, got to pick all the bits that he liked the most, and he got to skip the so-and-so begat so-and-so begat so-and-so part of history. You got to kind of paper over that. And he drew on Mongols, he drew on Native Americans, he drew on everything. He was very deeply read in world history, and and we get to do the same thing. I mean, that's one of the real joys of, we're kind of both history buffs, and we get to
recounting the violence of humanity.
Yeah, we get to just look at every awful thing that's happened in the world, not just one part of the world, and just cram it all into 10 hours, 7 hours rather, a season.
I just want to point out that Sophie Turner made us all do shots of vodka before we came out here. So
I'm 20. I didn't do any of that.
Our answers might not be as articulate as they should.
Okay, good.
Just trying to keep it complete sentences. If I can do a complete sentence, I know I'm still in shape.
Well, one of the things you guys just touched on was that that obviously you're drawing from source material, but season 6 was the first in which you would pass the books. So obviously next season will continue to do that. Can you talk a little bit about that process and working with George to achieve, and how much of it is his vision versus how much of it that you guys want to do with the show?
Yeah, well, some of it is still, it's still ultimately George's imagination that gave us these characters, that gave us this world. And 3 or 4 years ago, we were in Santa Fe talking to George, and he told us about where he was heading with the books, and that's when he told us the Hodor fate and where the name Hodor came from. And I just remember looking at Dan. It's George's fault. And I remember looking at Dan, and we were both so amazed and excited because it was so freaking cool. And one of the things that's brilliant about it is that this name, which has become almost a joke, people make jokes about Hodor, and then ultimately you realize where that name comes from, and it's suddenly a tragic turn, and that's so George R.R. Martin. So, hopefully we're still living out the spirit of George's imagination, and even though we're beyond the books, think one thing that's fun is that George's books will be very different in some respects and the same in others, and I think hopefully both the series and the books will be surprising to people who are reading or watching or whatever it is. So, Sophie Turner, her fault.
Sorry.
Well, I'm glad you brought something up because obviously, sadly, we lost one of the most beloved characters of the season and in all of television.
I know. It's tragic, isn't it? Yeah.
How did you create such a lovable scamp? And what is it like to be America's sweetheart?
Sorry, what was that?
Why such a lovable scamp?
Thank you, Sophie. I don't know. I mean, I think the key was that when we were discussing the character before we started shooting, that he had this kind of joy in everything that he does. So he's enjoying this. He's on the best time of his life, and he loves doing all this stuff. And that I think it kind of made him a bit funnier, I suppose. So he's not just some psychopath that there's just one direction. He's got a bit more about him. He's not in one direction.
Well, as an actor, obviously you have to find something you love about the character that you're playing, or at least understand where he or she is coming from. So, where is Ramsay Bolton coming from?
I think, poor guy's had a tough upbringing, he's a bastard in the north, which is always difficult. And, he's just looking for his father's love and acceptance and recognition all his life, and, it's kind of, that's obviously, everyone can relate to that.
Boo-hoo.
Thanks, Hope. Apart from that, there's very, very little to like about him, I think.
When obviously we lost Hodor.
Thank you, guys.
Christian, can you talk a little bit about the fans' response and what that was like? I'm sure it must have been overwhelming.
Well, yeah, it has been overwhelming. I did not expect it to be so crazy. I'm really, really flattered as well. It's blown my mind. I was in LA a few days ago in a hotel, and all their doorstops said Hodor on them. I go, really? But yeah, it's been incredible. I didn't expect it. I mean, the scene was incredibly written and directed, and I knew it was going to be cool, but I didn't expect the outpouring of emotion. You're gonna make me cry.
All right, let's see if we can make him cry.
Not really. Well, I apologize for that. I apologize for making you cry, but the crying in a good way, at least. Well, I've done my job now.
I'd like to do what the show is consistently doing, which is to transition from the sweet into blood. The episodes Battle of Bastards and Winds of Winter are probably the two most astonishing episodes, not only of this show, but maybe any show ever. And obviously a lot of that has to do with the director, Miguel Sapochnik. Speaking of the battle itself, obviously we could have a whole panel probably about those two episodes, but we have to limit it to a few questions. But speaking of the battle itself, I read that originally it was based on the Battle of Agincourt, which took place between the French and the English in 1415, but as needs changed, this is your quote, and as did budgets, it became more like the Battle of Cannae between the Romans and Hannibal in 216. Can you talk a little bit about what you meant by that? What changed and how you changed it?
Blimey. Originally when we talked about it, the whole idea was to steep it in history. So they wanted a strategic, pitched battle. And so the Battle of Agincourt was, I believe it was French and the English, wasn't it? French and the English fought it out on a field, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I might screw this up completely, the English attacked and the French encircled them. and caught them in a pincer movement, a double envelopment. And once they had them in a pincer movement, they basically used archers to mow these people down. And originally we were going to have a lot of horses, like 7 horses deep, and they were going to charge the horses and then actually surround the Allied troops and crush them with the horses. But the problem is, if you run horses at people, they don't like it. Like the first time they're alright, but the second time they're like, I don't really want to run at these people. And the third time I'm not going. So
I'm guessing the people don't like it either.
well, sometimes. So the decision is that we weren't going to run horses at people, but instead we were going to run people at people. And then there was this other idea, which I always loved and was probably the first image that I imagined in my mind when I saw when I read the outline, which was this pile of bodies. And this was something Dave and Dan were really keen on, and something that actually we had a lot of kind of back and forth, because initially it felt like, where does this pile of bodies come from? And then the more research you did, you started realizing when everybody dies, they become a pile of bodies. And gradually this pile of bodies really gets in the way of you achieving anything on a battlefield. And in fact, in the Battle of, is it Cannae? The Battle of Cannae, what was happening is these heavily armoured knights were going down into battle, and they were getting stuck between piles of bodies, of dead bodies, and they were becoming sitting ducks to then be picked off, which seemed horrible and a complete bummer to go out to battle and then get your foot stuck somewhere and get picked off. So that seemed like a good way to approach the battle, which is what we did.
And in terms of budget constraints, did that have something to do with it, or was it just?
The not using horses definitely was a budget constraint. I think any time you do something this big, you always start with something that's bigger than you actually have the money to do. And then what you come up with is creative ways to turn that disadvantage into an advantage. So there's so many things. In Hard Home the year before, it was the same thing. In this one, one of the reasons that we decided to have the wall of shields that arises was because we didn't really have the money to see what was behind the wall of shields, because we would have had to stage all the fighting and dead bodies, etc., etc. We just didn't have the money to do it. Even when we were doing the body pile, we had 257 bodies, and that doesn't quite cover the body pile. So between setups, 10 people from the art department will basically run and move all the bodies to another place, and then move bodies to another place. And it was all about trying to cover this big pile of chicken wire that we didn't have the money to cover.
Well, I saw that you're not on the list for directors this year, but we can expect you back next year?
I would very much hope so, yes.
Liam, I was wondering, just from an emotional standpoint, did you read the books?
No.
Were you aware, before you read the script, of the death of Shireen?
No. When I got the scripts the first time, you would have heard the clang of my jaw hitting the ground when I read it, and after I read it, that relationship was already there because we'd already filmed it, and to have her kind of removed from me, that relationship with Shireen was very easy. She's an absolutely gorgeous human being and a beautiful actress, and these guys keep taking the people I like working with away from me, which makes it difficult. But that was pretty tricky. Actually, I must tell you, there is a little story. The stag that I got. My daughter is in the audience here, by the way. Say hello to my daughter, please. So I liberated the stag, and my daughter has a wall of awesome at home. And I said, you need that after we finished filming. It hadn't been broadcast. And I said, you need to have that in your hand when we're watching the show. We all sit on the couch and watch it. What I didn't figure on, because I wasn't there for Shireen's demise, when the episode came on, I said, you need to have that again. And she'll tell you this, she had it in her hand. I hadn't seen it, and we sat down to watch it. And all of a sudden, my daughter was in a heap on the sofa as she watched my surrogate daughter, Shireen, getting burned to death while she held the stag that I had stolen from. And I felt like the worst dad in the world. It was appalling. Awful thing to do. So that's their fault, by the way.
Well, there's probably not a more lovable character in the show than Samwell Tarly. I realize when he sees the library that he smiles, and you realize that nobody in this show ever smiles, except for maybe Cersei. But I don't know if that's a smile as much as it's like an involuntary muscle response to something evil that pleases her. But there's a certain sweetness about Samwell and the way that John plays him.
Not John. Samwell, yes. John, no.
And I think we can assume that David and Dan and the world of Game of Thrones hates sweetness, and that eventually you will be executed in some way. So I'm wondering if you could choose the way you will die. Now is your opportunity, and I think I'd like to hear it. I'm sure they would as well.
How wonderful would it be, or kind of how the poetic justice of Sam has always been told that books are folly and they're to be dismissed, and nobody with any real common sense ever deals with books. He said, no, actually no. People who read books can do good in the world, they can do good for greater good. Yeah, see, right? He's never been around this many books before. He's climbing up the bookshelf to get a particularly, artistic, but book from the top shelf. Gets all the way up there, doesn't, severely underestimates his own weight, tipples backwards off the bookshelf and pulls all of those books down on top of it.
I'll direct that.
John, Miguel, you could direct this bit, right? We saw your work with John under the bodies in Battle of the Bastards. Imagine Sam trying to fight his way out of all the books that he's loved his whole life. And now, if he hadn't got what he wanted, he'd still be alive. It wasn't battle that killed him, it was books that killed him.
Oh my God! That seems like a win.
Show writes itself.
Little knowledge is a dangerous thing.
So female empowerment, obviously a huge aspect of season 6, but really, I believe, the series itself. And I think that no character personifies that more than Natalie Emmanuel's character, Missandei. Missandei. Everybody got a different pronunciation for that, I noticed. Missandei. Yes, Cersei and Dany, Brienne, Yara Greyjoy are women of strength, but so much of that comes from violence, or the threat thereof, whereas Missandei, a former slave who speaks 19 languages, offers something else. Compassion, intelligence, keen insight into the human condition, and in some ways, to me, it's the most impressive trajectory of anybody on the series. Can you speak a little bit to Missandei's role in the future of the Seven Kingdoms, as you see it?
It's hard to know what the future brings for her, but I think that she genuinely believes in Daenerys and her claim, and Daenerys has saved her life and liberated her and acknowledged her brilliance, because it's something that she also has. These two women that sort of respect and lift each other up, and it's a really sweet friendship and I guess working relationship as well. So I kind of hope that Missandei continues to support Daenerys and they sort of continue to be this sort of girl power couple.
Conleth, Varys has... I'm not going to stop you. That is
Hasselhoff.
He has a seemingly endless array of spy network. Obviously, he uses to his advantage. I'm wondering if you had such array of spies in your real life, what would you do? How would you use that power? For evil or for good?
Oh, for good. I despair of the world at the moment, with everything that's going on, and I think we should all be heading towards inclusivity rather than exclusivity. And so I admire his approach, and I love that this season you got to see him interrogate someone, and it probably wasn't what people expected, but that's just the way he works. So I like him, and most of the bad things are said about him by people who don't like him, which is a great example of the way the world works. But I think he's, so far, I mean, it could turn on its head, I've no idea. He could have been working for someone else the whole time, but it doesn't feel that way, certainly. And so I guess I'd use it for good.
It seems like you're having a ton of fun, and you're coming at it. So many of the scenes when we cut to you, they play comedically. In fact, when you watch the show, which I find really interesting, I've been to a few of the premieres, people laugh throughout the show, and it doesn't necessarily happen as often when you're sitting at home. But there's something about when you get together with the community and watch it, and I think a part of that, obviously, with Peter and with you, I'm wondering if you're doing that on purpose to bring a comedic bent to it, to bring a little bit of levity, or is it on the page, or is it something that
It's all on the page, and some of David and Dan's descriptions are hilarious, like "what bitch" or something like that, you know. But no, it's just an exquisite script, and it's perfect when you get it. You just go with it, and we're very grateful for that.
So are we.
Damn.
Sophie. You've had a big year.
I've had a what?
A big year.
Oh, right.
Big, brutal year. I should say Sansa has. First question that I think a lot of people would like to know, I certainly am one of them. Why didn't Sansa tell Jon about the Knights of Vale? That seems like important info.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Why do you
think? Sansa didn't tell Jon because she wanted all the credit, and it was a more dramatic moment when she showed up, and it makes for really good television. Wanting to know why It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia didn't get an Emmy nomination.
I don't know. You guys have won.
What are you doing wrong?
We haven't done enough seasons. I think we're only on season 26. I'm guessing 27. You guys seem to know a lot of people at the Emmys, because you've all been there, but I've never been. I would go as one of your dates.
Well, you deserve to be there.
Yeah, here.
They're not here for me. Well, do you believe that Sansa believes that Jon is the best fit for the Iron Throne, or do you think she maybe believes that she is? Or someone else?
I don't know about the Iron Throne. I think she believed it was probably more of a joint effort in terms of the Battle of the Bastards. She believes that they should both be king and queen of the North, for sure. I don't know about the Iron Throne. I'm not sure she's so keen on that anymore, but I'm not sure she believes that Jon is capable of running Winterfell in the North. I think she thinks he doesn't have the intellect, the knowledge, the experience that she has. And I concur. But she knows that he has wonderful morals, and that kind of those stark morals that inevitably he'll make the right decisions, or the good decision, but whether it's going to benefit anyone is another story. Whatever, Jon.
Oftentimes when you see an actor try to play a badass on screen and they're not quite pulling it off, it just sort of takes you out of it. You sort of never believe that this dainty little actor is as tough as he or she actually looks in real life. That, however, is not the case with Faye Marseille. You pretty much channeled the Terminator better than Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Stole that one. Yep. I was like doing a scene and I was running, and then I was sort of mid-scene and I realised that my arms were doing this, and I thought, yeah, I'll keep that, and did, and it went down pretty well. So yeah.
Well, so it was unbelievably authentic, and so do you have any background in martial arts, or are you just like a badass in real life? Or?
No, I'm quite a scaredy cat in real life. I'm quite nervous and shy actually. So spending a month with Maisie Williams training like gets you in the mood, you know, because she's really good. So you want to be like as good as her. She used to hit me all the time and to make me keep going. Come on, Marcy, come on. So I have a lot to thank Maisie for. So yeah, in real life, I mean, I quite like football, soccer over here, but that's about it. Yeah.
There's a lot of speculation that Arya and the Waif are in fact the same person,
Yeah.
which would explain quite a bit. No one else seems to see her when she's beating up a blind girl in the middle of Bravos. Nobody seems to actually notice. What do you think?
I think the theory was a cool one. It would have been really cool, but I think Arya is Arya, and that's her journey. And I think the way it is now is the best way. Like the theory's good and it's creative, but I think they've got it right. The writers, yeah.
Hey, writers, are people reading into it too much, or?
Good answer.
That's fair. So Isaac Hempstead, right? He plays Bran. Bran obviously got some pretty big info in the season finale, probably one of the biggest secrets in the history of the show. And your character is the only one that knows it. If there's anybody in this room who doesn't know what I'm talking about, you do not deserve to be here. And I'm just going to tell you, it would appear that Jon Snow is not, in fact, Ned's son at all. He is a Targaryen and therefore has a rightful claim to the throne. So what do you think Bran is going to do with that information?
Well, first of all, I don't think we know for sure whether it's a Targaryen. Dad, it could well be that there's an incest situation going on, like with the Lannisters. Well, I think Bran knows that he's been shown this information for a reason. He might not know exactly why that is, but he knows for some reason it's imperative that he knows this and he spreads the word. But I presume somehow he'll tell Jon, but I don't know how Jon will take it when Bran turns up and says, by the way, I'm a tree wizard and your dad isn't your dad. Just.
So you pretty much grew up on the show. You started when you were 11?
Yeah, Sophie and I both started when we were fairly young. And,
what's it like to be internationally famous at that age? 11 to 17?
I kind of... It's fun to be here, but you don't really notice it. I think you just kind of take it as it comes and enjoy what comes of it.
I have a question for everybody that I'd like to have everybody answer. It's two-parter. One, I don't think you guys should answer. We can start with Miguel. Who do you believe will win the Iron Throne, and who would you like to see on the Iron Throne?
Oh, that would be telling. Yeah, I don't know, to be honest with you. I would be very happy if they shared it, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, the only hint that we have of this is Mr. George or Martin said that the ending would be bittersweet, which doesn't give too much away. But knowing the deranged minds that we're dealing with on this show, it could be anything. Listen, I hope I don't get this right. I have an image of a White Walker sitting on the throne with the Night King with his leg over the arm, sucking on a Cuban cigar. But what do I know?
Well, if it comes to that, what do I know? It's tricky, isn't it, when people ask you, how do you think it's going to turn out? Because you think, what if I'm right?
Yeah,
the worst
what
thing
he's made
wrong.
too.
And then in 2 years' time, it flashes back to this, and John Bradley spoils it all for everyone. But I'd say, just out of pure blind loyalty, I'd say, John. Yeah, just because that means that I may be in it till the end as well, and the way it goes.
That's his maester.
I have a similar motive, and I have to say Daenerys, because I've done a loyalty thing. because I think, you know, she's a good girl. She can be very ferocious, but she's generally, you know, cares about people and wants to change things. So I think she'd make a good queen. But at the same time, I'm so excited about the Starks all sort of coming back together. So who knows? Who knows?
Pardon?
Good point.
Right,
Yes.
true.
I know, but I can't say.
I think I want Littlefinger on the throne. I just think
Shame.
No, I just think it'd be fun. It'd be quirky, sadistic. We like that kind of thing. Come on, we all watch Game of Thrones. All right, leave it out, mate.
I think they should melt the thing down and have a democracy.
Can't really follow that one. Probably Arya, because if I don't say Maisie, she'll probably beat me up with a stick. So, Arya.
I think we should have a four-pronged Stark dream team. We have Jon on the throne, Sansa advising, Arya beating people up, and Bran just sitting in the corner with the tray.
I think the throne's probably not going to be important by the end of the show. I think there's going to be a huge battle between the Night King and Daenerys, and I think Cersei's probably going to get flattened in between somewhere. But on the throne, I think Westeros for once deserves someone with honour and integrity, and I think Brienne would make a really good.